Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum. I'm your host Faisal Raza Khan and you are watching Foresight. Viewers, we all know that Indian general elections were held from 19th April to 1st June 2024 in 7 phases, and due to these elections, at least 543 member parliaments of the 18th Lok Sabha were elected. In these elections, Bharatiya Janata Party's led National Democratic Alliance secured 293 seats, while Indian National Congress led Indian National Development Inclusive Alliance, India, collectively secured at least 234 seats. Both major Indian political parties, Bharatiya Janata Party and Indian National Congress, always level lots of allegations, and particularly during these elections, on each other. For example, Bharatiya Janata Party termed Indian National Congress as a proponent of dynastic politics, corruption, upper caste supporter, and having connivance with the Muslims, beside other minorities. While Indian National Congress termed the Bharatiya Janata Party as an elite party against the low caste, threat to secularism and minorities as well. We will comprehensively explore the intricacies and complexities of the Indian electoral politics, as India's electoral process has long been a subject of scrutiny. It's because of a complex web of contradictions, controversies, and inherent biases, where the lines between democracy and authoritarianism are increasingly blurred. We will examine the role of wealth, dynastic politics, elitism, caste, religion, and extremism in shaping the Indian electoral landscape. And we also examine where the voter stands actually, whether Lok Sabha is the true representation and reflection of the Indian voters, especially minorities who are continuously facing persecution, injustice, and exclusion, especially when we are talking about the general elections in India. We will explore these aspects in the light of a comprehensive report that was launched on January 9th, 2025, just recently, by India Study Center, ISC, of the Institute of the Strategic Studies, Islamabad. It's a first ever quantitative analysis of the Indian politics and the dynamics of elections, especially in the context of Bharatiya Janata Party and Indian National Congress, the two mainstream political parties in India. To discuss this matter, we have in our studios Maheen Shafeeq, she is the international relations expert, and also Usama Hameed, he is the Indian affairs expert, and both of them are the co-authors as well of this report which we have right now. And this is the report which was issued by the India Study Center of the Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad, and you can also download it from their website as well. And this is a very comprehensive report, and the lead author of this report is Dr. Khurram Abbas. He is the director, India Study Center of the Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad. He is at Skype with us. Most welcome to you, Dr. Khurram. Thank you very much for being with us, and thank you very much for this quantitative analysis of the Indian politics, particularly because it's the first ever of its kind. So my first question to you related to this study particularly, what actually prompted to have such kind of a study on Indian political quagmire and its controversial dynamics and dimensions, as most call it a democracy, but some call it a autocracy or semi kind of a dictatorship, or auto-democracy, or a hybrid kind of a regime in contemporary India. So what's the significance of this report when we are right now talking about the Indian politics and its dynamics?
Well, thank you so much, Faisal, for having me. And as you mentioned, the other two authors with us, Maheen and Usama, so my compliments to both of them, because it was the first of its kind study and we had no precedent available to start with. So this is a initiative which we took upon soon after the Indian elections, the Lok Sabha elections, in somewhere between mid-June after the results. So what actually happened that India Study Center was keenly observing the electoral process of India, and we were following debates, speeches, and campaigns of every political party. And one thing that was common in all those political campaigns and those political parties, that these parties were trying to give a message or essence of being one of the representatives of the people. So if one side was saying that we are the representatives of the common citizens, the other side was saying that we are here to protect the rights of the common people. So this study was carried out to basically check these qualitative statements by the political leadership. So for that, we have to quantify these issues like systematic underrepresentation of minorities or caste and class inequalities. Then there was wealth concentration in politics and increase of influence of Hindutva ideology within the BJP. So these were the factors that actually led us to study this. And this study has a quantified mechanism, and at the same time it has examined the socio-political composition of 18th Lok Sabha. And we focused only on two political parties, BJP and Congress, because we had to see or uncover realities behind their narratives. So for that, why these two parties? Because these two parties somewhere represent more than 60% of Lok Sabha members. So we thought that it would be better to see these political parties and quantify their MPs and their representation to find out what are their political rhetoric and what are the political realities that are sometimes hidden within this very unique quagmire of debates on politics.
So, Dr. Khurram, when we are talking about, we are always very much stressful upon that how the data is actually collected for the comprehensive reports and all that. So, particularly this quantitative analysis or this report, how you have collected that data, particularly what factors actually you identified in it, and how it would be a benchmark study to unveil what's actually happening inside the Indian political arena.
Yeah, so again, as I earlier mentioned, that there was no precedence, so we had to start our own research methodology. So what we did, like, we started with the mixed method approach. So we started with the qualitative data as well as the quantitative data, and for that we consulted several reports, official sources such as Election Commission of India. Then there were election reports available on various Indian websites and profiles of the members of the parliament individually. And then, basically, this study has assessed metrics like wealth, caste, religion, connections within the dynastic politics, and then last but not the least, the RSS affiliation. And as you mentioned about the benchmark, I think this study is a benchmark because it uniquely combines not only the qualitative data sets but also the quantitative analysis, and it basically critically combines and evaluates the India's domestic representation and highlights trends and challenges of the country's claim to secularism and inclusivity. So yes, this is a first of its kind study in Islamabad and perhaps in Pakistan that has quantified not only the representation of BJP and Congress, but they have also busted several myths revolving around BJP or Congress.
Dr. Khurram, your point well taken. Maheen, as Dr. Khurram elaborated about this report particularly, wealth is one of the key areas in this report. What does the wealth status of the Lok Sabha member parliaments highlight about India's overall community? Is it a wholesome representation of the various classes of the Indian society?
First of all, thank you so much for having me on the show, and thank you so much for discussing this report that we worked on extensively. We studied the wealth status of various elected MPs of the Lok Sabha of 2024. We identified that majority of the classes are not represented within the Lok Sabha. An average assets of an Indian general public is around $14,000. But we saw that it was nowhere close to the assets of the members of parliament. We saw that there were no members who were represented from the lower class, no members represented from the middle class. We only saw few members who were representing the upper middle class, but majority of the members were from the upper class, either from the lower upper class or middle upper class or upper class. And we saw that average assets of these MPs were around 1 to 5 crore. We saw that there were a lot of billionaires within the MPs. Interestingly, we noted that this highlights great inequality within the Lok Sabha. We saw that only 1% of the wealth is represented in the Lok Sabha, whereas rest of the Indian population is not represented within the Lok Sabha. This highly impacts the policy making within the Lok Sabha. This identifies that the policy making will be well suited for the elitists. It will cater to the interests of the elite, whereas we saw even during election season, the majority of the Indian public demanded basic rights such as a job. They were concerned about inflation. They were concerned about education. They were concerned about health. These are the basic issues of common Indian citizen, but these were not addressed within any of the election campaigns. So the wealth status identifies that these are the areas which are still lacking, and the Lok Sabha generally discusses the issues of upper class.
Well described. Usama, what's the role of Indian political leadership in creating socio-political exclusion of the minorities, especially when we are talking about Muslims particularly, as they are 14% of the Indian population? So there should be at least around 80 member parliaments in the Lok Sabha. But that had never been the case in entire Indian history. Only 50s, and then we have seen in 80s, and then in 2014. Those were the little exceptions where we have at least 40 or less than that, or might be 28 or something. Recently we have 24 MPs in 18th Lok Sabha recently. The BJP has no representation, and Congress has only 7. So accumulatively, the Congress alliance, which was India, that alliance has at least 21 MPs into the parliament. So how do you see the exclusion of minorities, Christians, the Sikh, Dalit, and particularly Muslims?
Thank you very much. Basically, as you have already mentioned, that the situation, the political grounds for minorities has never been excellent in India. They were always on the margins of the political grounds. They were always being excluded from the policy making, from the political representation. And you cannot blame one party for it. Even those parties with apparent secular face, they were all they also took part in that, and they were excluding Muslims and minorities from their political representation. But recently, since 2014 onwards, we have been witnessing a new phenomena. This phenomena shows that the BJP, which is a hardcore Hindu nationalist party, this party does not give way to political representation of minorities, and also it compels other secular forces which claim to be secular political parties to revert toward a soft Hindutva approach and not give space to political to religious minorities. Like we see that the BJP, as you have already mentioned, the BJP, out of 240 MPs of the BJP, only one is non-Hindu, who is
that is also Buddhist.
Yeah, and not a single Muslim MP. And out of 99 MPs of the Congress party, there are around seven are Muslims, some are nine are Christians, six MPs are from Sikh background, and 2 are Buddhist. So this comprises around 25%. So their 25% is belongs to religious minorities. But the problem is that when you systematically exclude these religious minorities, when you contribute into their marginalization, this political underrepresentation converts and translates into their social exclusion. They are marginalized on social fabric. They are not given much opportunities, economic opportunities, social opportunities. They are the instances like the policies are being made which are harming them. Now, can you believe that a political party with zero representation from the Muslims is compelling and forcing the parliament, pressurizing the parliament to do legislation towards to amend the Waqf bill of 1995. So this will directly impact the 200 million Muslims of India. So this is the part of an agenda where Hindutva forces, Hindu nationalist forces, they go to the political exclusion of minorities, and other secular forces also join hands with them.
Definitely, you are absolutely right. Maheen, what type of trends are prominent in the wealth status of the Lok Sabha MPs, as report says that the BJP has a much greater concentration of the upper class billionaire MPs than the Congress. Its Congress BJP comparison is about 4:19 MPs in the Lok Sabha, isn't it?
Yes, you have rightly pointed. This is an interesting outcome of our study. We found that there are quite a lot of number of billionaires within the BJP party. Usually BJP and Modi has criticized Congress for being an elitist party with an elitist philosophy, but we found out that majority of the billionaires or the high profile business tycoons or funders of India's largest party, the BJP, are actually billionaires. These are the business tycoons who own majority of India. And we saw the concentration of such people are within the BJP. And then these are then the drivers of the policy. These are people who play an active role in policy making so that are suitable for the business community. It is interesting to note that within BJP, there are several candidates such as Amit Shah, who holds 60 crore assets as compared to Rahul Gandhi, who owns 20 crore assets. There's a huge difference. Although Rahul Gandhi has a dynastic political background, but his wealth is very less as compared to the other members of the BJP.
Very important point you have highlighted. Usama, do you not think that the Indian minorities, including the Muslims, Christians, Sikh, Dalit, and others, are systematically targeted? As we have seen, Christians are being targeted there in Manipur without any exception. Muslims elsewhere being targeted in the name of cow protection, the love jihad, the Ghar Wapsi since 2014, while the Prime Minister Narendra Modi delivered at least 110 Islamophobic speeches, out of which 173 during the election campaign, and 110 is a huge number. And that was basically to discredit the opponents, and the same reflected in the across the board in the electoral process as well.
Exactly right. I think hate speech is part of the systematic agenda of the Bharatiya Janata Party and other Hindutva forces, and they through this hate speech and through spreading hatred towards religious minorities and other social groups, they basically create a majoritarian environment in which they monger a fear among the majority that your rights are being grabbed, you are being deprived of your rights. So how can you believe, how can you imagine that an ordinary citizen of India will be friendly towards Muslims or Christians when the country's prime minister, he himself delivers speeches in open gatherings, and he says that he labels Muslims as infiltrators, as Ghaddars, and as the ones who produce more kids than others. So these are some of the unfortunate instances which we are regularly witnessing in India, and they create a fear among Muslims, they create a fear among other minorities, especially Muslims and Christians, and they urge majoritarian Hindus, Hindu nationalists to launch mob vigilantism, love jihad and such campaigns at social level in the society, and this is part and parcel of a wholesome agenda that fits the popularity of the RSS and other political forces.
Your point well taken, Usama. Dr. Khurram, how the political underrepresentation of the religious minorities causing their socio-economic marginalization, as the report suggests that Indian National Congress has more diverse representation of the minorities, but even then underrepresentation as compared to the Hindu MPs. But Bharatiya Janata Party has entire representation, belongs to the Hindu community, and no one from the minority except one Buddhist MP. So how do you see, in comparison to these both political parties, Congress seems to be more accommodative, but if we analyze the past elections, there were at least 34 candidates given tickets who were the Muslims. But this time, only 19 candidates got the tickets and only 7 were the winners. So how do you see even this phenomena of marginalizing the minorities or the Muslims is prevailing in Congress as well?
Yes, you are absolutely right. You know, sometimes we tend to carry away from BJP as compared to Congress, and we believe that Congress perhaps have relatively more inclusive party in terms of caste or religion. But as you pointed out very well, that both parties are basically fail to reflect the proportional population of minorities. This systematic underrepresentation is not limited to just Muslims. Christians are also facing similar underrepresentation. And if you talk about the BJP, BJP has an overwhelming Hindu majority composition, 239 out of 40. And if you look at its policies, basically they are further marginalizing the minorities, not only socially, not only economically, but also politically. So, for example, if BJP's third tenure, if you look at for past few months, you will find out certain overwhelming manipulation of Hindu identity. So, for instance, Waqf bill or uniform civil code. Can a party that does not have representation of Muslims can dictate its terms on Muslims, and those terms that are too related or hardcore ideologies of religious traditions? So the answer is big no, because BJP this lacks this kind of legitimacy. So BJP requires legitimacy to propose such kind of amendments. So because of this lack of legitimacy, BJP cannot propose or execute policies on behalf of Muslims or Christians. So until and unless it has some kind of inclusive MPs within those Lok Sabha house that can represent those.
Your point well taken, well elaborated, Dr. Khurram. Maheen, what is the relationship of, there is always a relationship between the wealth and the dynastic politics. So, in that background of the upper, particularly when majority is upper class in Indian politics, especially in Bharatiya Janata Party as well as in Congress, while some actually hail from the royal family backgrounds. So how it is actually impacting the political system, the political environment, overall electoral process?
We in our study tried to find out that how many members of the parliament, both from the Indian National Congress and BJP, had some sort of dynastic political backgrounds, or if they had their spouses, their parents, their siblings, if they were part of the Lok Sabha or any other form of government. From this, we found out that about 40% of Congress MPs were from the dynastic political backgrounds. However, we also saw that there were 54 members of BJP who had some sort of dynastic political background. We have seen that people or members of the parliament or electoral candidates who have some sort of dynastic political background, they would get preference. We saw in relation to the wealth status, we saw that it is not necessary that a member of the parliament having a dynastic political background, hailing from a political background or political family, will have a higher wealth status. As I already mentioned, we saw that Rahul Gandhi does not hold as much assets as Amit Shah, who has no political, dynastic political background. We saw that majority of the wealth was owned by business tycoons, such as there's an example of Naveen Jindal, who holds around 12,000 crore. 1,200 crores. So that is a major sum of money, and he is one of the highest asset holder within the members of parliament.
Okay. Usama, as the elections outcome demonstrates actually, on the contrary to the Janta mantra, which is always every party is proponent there in India, Indian political parties are actually the amalgamation of the wealth and the upper caste Hindus who protect and advance the socio-economic interests of their communities, particularly their communities like businessmen, like landlords, like other people, depriving the marginalized sections of even the basic rights. So in presence of such ground realities, do you think that the two leading political parties in India are the true representatives of the common Indian citizen as they claim?
While profiling these, the membership of these two leading political parties, when we go deep into their political representation in the parliament, we find a deep nexus between power, industry and upper caste in the Indian parliament. This is a nexus where both Congress and BJP are somehow facilitating this nexus, and this nexus is basically on the one hand it protects the rights, it protects the interests of the elite groups, the industry, the upper caste groups, and on the other side this comes at the cost of the even basic rights of the marginalized communities, whether they are from lower caste, scheduled castes, or they are from religious minorities. So they do not represent a common Indian citizen, and now since 2014 onwards, we have witnessed that there was a peak in the popularity of the Bharatiya Janata Party when a common man was sloganeering for this party. But now in this election, after 10 years down the road, we see that the BJP, the popularity graph of the BJP has come much downwards, and that is because the common man has understood that the BJP has nothing to do with its agenda, with the common the problems of the common man, and it is fulfilling its hate and communal agenda. So similar is there are some exceptions, but similar is the case with the Congress.
So taking this forward, what Usama said, BJP and Prime Minister Modi have been vocal critics of Congress, dynastic political background. Modi often termed Rahul Gandhi as prince or the royal. Is dynastic political background a prominent trend in the Congress only, or it prevails and prominent in Bharatiya Janata Party as well? As we have the data which from your report actually, that suggests that BJP has 23% and the Congress has 40% MPs hail from the political family backgrounds.
Yes, you rightly pointed out, even during this election season, we have seen whenever there's an election season in India or generally around the world, the two parties would call each other's leaders some names, or they would criticize each other. There would be some sort of agenda at it, as both of my colleagues mentioned. During this election, we saw that BJP members and also Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself also called Rahul Gandhi Shehzada, or hailing from a royal family. Initially, during 2014 election, he used a different tone for Rahul Gandhi. During that time, the word Pappu was really famous. So that's what he used to refer Rahul Gandhi. But now the term has changed to Shehzada and hailing from a royal family. And this was one of the major areas of our study, and we wanted to find out that if dynastic political background, if that actually holds true for the Congress. And like you rightly pointed out, from our study, we found that Indian National Congress had majority of the dynastic political background, or people hailing from that background. But as opposed to the BJP, we saw, although there were several key members who had dynastic political background, but there were significant number of members who had royal backgrounds. There were royals from Mysore, there were royals from Odessa, there were royals from Tripura, and but there were also some royals within the Congress, but majority of the royals were from the BJP.
So, Usama, as Maheen said, Indian National Congress actually demands for a countrywide caste census as well as a part of its electoral manifesto, which has not happened in India since 1931. So as per Congress demand, can a caste census across India resolve the problem of lower castes? Why the ruling BJP is much wary about it?
So basically, you see, India is considered one of the most unequal societies in the world. And that is because of its religious dynamics, its social dynamics that exclude certain communities from the privileges that the upper castes enjoy there. A countrywide caste census, this will be very basic step toward ensuring these rights which the lower caste should be given, these rights include political representation, economic rights, job, employment, education. And we have seen an example in a state in India. In Bihar, there was a there was a statewide caste census in 2022. And that caste census, its report showed that there are the highest poverty rate in this state is among the scheduled castes, that are Dalits and other lower castes, and the most privileged class in that state is the Brahmins and other upper castes that hardly they hardly form around 14% of the total population of the state. So this gives you a data on the basis of which you can decide, on the basis of which you can pressurize the elite of the country to give certain rights to the communities. And the second part of your question, why BJP is much wary of it. So I think the formulation of the BJP's parliamentary party in current Lok Sabha itself is self-evident that why BJP is wary of it. 121, that means more than 50% of the BJP's Lok Sabha members, they hail from an upper caste background. So how can they accommodate lower castes and other minorities? So a countrywide caste census will be first step towards ensuring the rights of lower castes, but BJP will never will resist the demands of a countrywide caste census as much as it can resist.
Okay. Dr. Khurram, do you not think that the nexus of the power and upper caste is actually damaging the face of Indian so-called democracy, because we have never seen democracy or the democratic practices in India since 2014? And what about the Hindu extremist and nationalist forces, how they are actually influencing even the secular parties in their electoral choices?
Well, as mentioned by Usama, I think, if you look at the upper caste politics in India, so both parties, these both major parties are being, being dominantly representing the upper caste Hindus. And this basically undermines the inclusive ideals of democracy. Hindu extremists and nationalist forces, particularly the RSS, deeply influences BJP. And it not only, influences the BJP in terms of its policies within the government, but we have also seen that BJP has also remain under stress during the electoral process as well by RSS. So basically, RSS controls BJP's electoral process. So overall, BJP has failed to represent the marginalized communities in 18th Lok Sabha. And in one sentence, if I could describe this 18th Lok Sabha looking into BJP's MPs or even Congress MPs, I would call it, basically a representation of the upper caste Hindus, and that does not, want or wish to protect the rights of the lower caste marginalized Hindu communities, as mentioned by Usama as well.
So, your point well taken. Usama, why, while maintaining the posture of a cultural organization, as Dr. Khurram is rightly pointing out, how does the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh RSS influence the policy making and the governance in India? Is it because of the top leadership and majority influential MPs who are actually the RSS affiliates, or because of any other reason prevailing?
Yeah. So, contrary to its claims that the RSS is a cultural organization, has nothing to do with politics, we see multiple strategies which RSS implies to influence the policy making and governance processes in India through the Bharatiya Janata Party and through the current system that is running under Modi government since 2014. So, we see the first strategy for them is to influence the ticket distribution and political representation of the Bharatiya Janata Party. In the current formation of the BJP's parliamentary party, we see that out of 240 MPs that are in the parliament currently, the 36 are from the hardcore RSS background. So, these 36 are not ordinary MPs. They are influential persons, they run the policy and governance affairs, they are leading the government sector, and they formulate the kitchen cabinet of the Prime Minister Modi. Prime Minister Modi himself is an RSS affiliate. Rajnath Singh, who is the defense minister, he is an RSS affiliate. Amit Shah is the Union Home Minister, he is the affiliate of the RSS, and similar other instances are there. And an interesting phenomena is that always whenever there is an Hindu nationalist government in India, RSS focuses ministries like education, like defense, like cultural ministry, like youth affairs, and like information. These are all ministries which play a pivotal role in the formulation of narratives, in the formulation of ideologies, and they have.
We have actually run short of time, so
sure.
Maheen, very quickly, in Indian electoral process and in Lok Sabha as well, Indian dynastic, royal, wealthy, elite and upper caste Hindus are actually dominating. This looks helping corruption and nepotism to flourish, especially in the electoral system overall. So how do the lower caste communities responding to the corrupt electoral practices, and resultantly you have no representation within Lok Sabha?
This is a very important agenda throughout these election season we saw. The rest of the castes and the classes are uniting against BJP. We saw that in Ayodhya, where Ram Temple was inaugurated over the ruins of Babri Masjid. We saw that a Dalit leader hailing from a Samajwadi party, he won the election, which indicates that how the people or the common citizens of India, the voters, are preferring anybody but BJP so that their agenda, their voices can be heard within the Lok Sabha.
Your point well taken. Dr. Kamran, one last question, and be brief on that because we have run short of time. Is India justified in its claim of being secular democracy? Can India maintain this posture under a hardcore Hindu nationalist government with Hindu Raj and Hindutva ideology being preached and practiced across India, minorities persecuted and vandalized with impunity?
You know, Indian secular identity, I think, is increasingly at odds with its political realities. You know, whether it is on the underrepresentation of the minorities or the underrepresentation of the marginalized communities. So basically, if I would call Lok Sabha, I would call, you know, it as a club of the upper caste Hindus that only, you know, protect their own agenda. And then there is a nexus of the wealthy people and the political people. So Adani, Ambani has nexus with Modi and Amit Shah. So this seems very logical that the given representation of wealthy individuals in Lok Sabha actually promotes the corporations and over big corporations and big businesses. So I don't think so that this, you know, marginalization of minorities and
short of time.
of
Thank you very much for your presence online. Thank you very much for your presence online. Thank you very much, Maheen, for your presence here in the studios. Thank you very much, Usama. Very well elaborated. Viewers, you have just listened to our panelists, and though proportional, even proportional representation in the Lok Sabha, unfortunately, and people in India, the voters are actually struggling to have their identity within their parliament. Royals, the dynastic politics, elites, the upper caste Hindus, extremists, and even the wealthy, they have captured the Indian democracy overall and so-called democracy. There is no sign of democracy, even no sign of secularism left, because 60% of the Lok Sabha belongs to these two political parties when we are talking about Bharatiya Janata Party and Indian National Congress. And majority are actually not representing those classes which are marginal, which are even the lower class or the middle class. And unfortunately, the Indian Parliament is a kind of a majoritarian parliament, belongs to those wealthy and elite people. Lots of billionaires are there in the parliament. Only 24 Muslim MPs are there in the parliament, unfortunately, and this number is decreasing with the passage of time. People are actually calling for having solutions regarding inflation, jobs, education. They are the demands, but who will post this demand in their parliament and passed it, because the people belongs to, they are not belong to those people in India. Now political exclusion turns into a social exclusion, unfortunately, especially regarding the minorities. RSS mantra is heavy there in India, even in Indian Parliament, that is ongoing, and the hatred towards the minorities. RSS actually controls not only the Bharatiya Janata Party's electoral process, but their affiliates are in the limelight and having lucrative posts like Defense Ministry, the Interior Ministry, the Home Ministry, what they call, and all others. So it means that India is in capture of the extremist Hindus right now. India is no more secular. It's turned into a Hindu nationalist country gripped into the Hindutva ideology. This is all from today's Foresight. It's time to sign off. Allah Hafiz Nasir.